Howdy, remarketing fans, and welcome back. Now that we have a pretty good understanding of the benefits of Google Tag Manager, let's get started with Tag Manager by signing into our Tag Manager account. To get to the Tag Manager homepage, you simply go to google.com/analytics/Tag Manager. And even if you type in google.com/Tag Manager, you'll get to the same page. I recommend spending a few minutes checking out Google's homepage, their features. They explain a little bit in depth about what Tag Manager is, some of their success stories, resources, so on and so forth. But for us, we're just going to go in and click Sign In. And we'll click Tag Manager. Because I'm already signed into my Google Analytics account, it's going to bring me directly into the Tag Manager account creation setup stage. We're going to set up an account by simply naming the account our company name. So I'll type in Adventure Media. And I'm going to click Share Data Anonymously with Google and others. You could leave that unchecked. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. We're going to name our container. The container is going to be the bucket of tags. We explained what a container was in the last section. It's going to be the bucket of tags that you're going to be putting on your site and you'll be managing inside the Google Tag Manager interface. You'll be able to set up multiple containers, but for now we need to just set up one container. So I'm going to label it adventureppc.com, our website, and we're going to select web for where this container is going to be used. If you're using this container to set up a mobile app, you would select either iOS or Android, respectively, for the type of mobile app install you're working on. But for most of us, we're going to be doing a web install, and simply hit Create. You're going to click Yes to the policies, and then once that saves, your account, your Google Tag Manager account, will be created. The first thing Google does simply is gives us their Google Tag Manager tag. This is that tag that's going to replace what we did in the last step with that Google Analytics tag. This is the tag that has to be added globally to your entire site. Once again, if you're doing WordPress, it goes in the footer section in a header widget. You could add it via a plugin, a code injection. You could add it via FTP, whatever it is, but you just have to go in there one time and add this tag because this is your container tag. This tag is going to pull all the additional tags you add inside the Google Tag Manager interface, as we explained in the previous section. If you're tracking e-commerce and you're doing something like, if you're using a website like Shopify or a shopping cart like BigCommerce or PrestaShop, Joomla, Drupal, Magento, any of these basic CMSs, they'll all have either a header or footer code injection area where you're going to want to add this tag. So just find the header or footer code injection area, or any of these big shopping carts, anything you're using, even if it's WooCommerce, Squarespace, Wix, you name it, they'll have a plugin that will allow you to either add Google Tag Manager, the actual tag itself for Google Tag Manager, or we'll just have a simple header or footer code insert or code injection plugin that will allow you to add this code. So this is just the JavaScript code that you're going to place. Google Tag Manager recommends it being placed after the opening body tag, but that would mean you'd have to go into every single page unless you do it via a plugin, but just add it to the header or footer section of your site. Once you do that, click OK. We're not going to go in and do this now together because we already went through that exact process in the previous lecture, and it's the same exact thing. Once you have the container added to your site, you're presented with the very visually simplified Google Tag Manager dashboard. As you'll see, this looks very different than Analytics and AdWords. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, and Google does a good job at keeping this as simple as possible. Up at the top, you have your accounts, where you could add new accounts. If you have clients, you could add multiple different client accounts inside Google Tag Manager. You have your container for this account, and the next important place you're going to want to check out is the admin section. This looks very similar to Google Analytics, where you could add and remove users. You could look at account activity. You could configure your account settings. And we're going to use this admin area to add some customized containers, some customized codes to do our tracking, like scroll depth tracking and YouTube video play tracking, that once we get into some more of the advanced features of Google Tag Manager. You're going to spend most of your time in this container section. Inside your container, you have your overview, you have the actual tags, triggers, and variables. We're going to be spending most of our time inside the tags section. The tags are the actual scripts, the actual codes that you're going to be adding from third-party vendor. For example, if you're running AdRoll, you can have an AdRoll tag. If you're running AdWords conversion tracking, you're going to have an AdWords conversion tracking tag. Same thing as with Google Analytics. Same thing with any other third-party vendor. They're all going to start off with a tag. Triggers are simply rules or requirements that will trigger or fire any given tag. So you might have a trigger to fire a tag on all web pages. That's the most straightforward trigger. Every single tag is going to have a trigger associated with it. For example, for our basic Google Analytics tag, which we're going to add here through Google Tag Manager first, our trigger is going to be all web pages because we want that tag to fire on every single page. If, for example, you didn't want your Google Analytics tag to fire on your Contact Us page for whatever reason, you'd be able to modify the trigger so it doesn't fire on that specific page. Variables are a more advanced feature. We're going to start using variables when we're looking at tracking e-commerce data or product ID data. For example, a variable might be something like the total cart value of a certain conversion. And that's a variable that you're going to want to track associated with a certain ad click to see how much money in revenue that click generated. The reason why they're called variables simply because they change from visitor to visitor. They're not always the same thing. We're going to be able to use variables to further customize our tags and triggers and send additional data back into Google Analytics to make more thoughtful remarketing campaigns, to make more thoughtful use of our data. So that's the basic overview of Google Tag Manager. You sign in, you add that container to your site, and you have tags, triggers, and variables. We're primarily going to be worried and concerned with tags and triggers. And once we actually start adding these tags, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and publish and preview what those tags look like and how they're functioning on your website. So in the very next section, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our basic Google Analytics tag. Remember, if you're adding your Google Analytics tag through Tag Manager, you do not need to go ahead and add Google Analytics to your site hard-coded like we did in the previous chapter. If your Google Analytics tag happens to be both hard-coded into your site and running through Google Tag Manager, it will still work. You'll just be duplicating your data and there's no need for it. And you don't necessarily want your website to be loading additional resources that it doesn't have to pull from Google servers. So just choose one. I recommend doing it through Google Tag Manager if you want to. It makes it easier, it's quicker, and you have more flexibility, and it works really, really well. So let's jump into the next section where we're going to go ahead and add our Google Analytics code. And from there, we're going to start getting more advanced in Google Tag Manager, getting some really customized tags, triggers, and variables to send back some really great marketing data into our Google Analytics account. So thank you very much for watching this one, guys, and I will catch up with you in a few seconds in the very next lecture.